Today on NerdOut, drip drops and curves. Welcome back to NerdOut, the show where we take a look at Cardano and we break it down, but we don't dumb it down. Today we're talking about drip drops and curves. So let's get into it. So you may have heard that DripDropz has implemented a new curve for the drop parameters. And the problem this is designed to solve is, in general, DripDropz says user comes to DripDropz, they want to claim token X. How much of token X are they eligible to receive? So there's different options for DripDropz token clients. The first one, well, the first two are kind of where we started. And this is a a flat rate distribution. So if somebody comes to DripDropz, they have a staked wallet, then they get the same amount of token, no matter how much is staked in that wallet. And there also may be a cutoff where if your wallet is below a certain threshold, then it doesn't get any, and then it gets the flat rate after that. There's also the linear option, which is the more ADA you hold, the more token that you receive. So that's kind of the linear option, and these two are where we started. Where we've gone recently is this S-curve that we talked about on both a Twitter space, and we put out a Medium article as well. And the idea here is that below a certain threshold, you still get some amount of tokens. It'll be a smaller amount, and then it'll rapidly increase to this ideal amount of tokens to receive. In the case of the drip token, it's 1,000 drip up here at the top. And the inflection point is somewhere around 250, where you transition from slightly less than 1,000 drip, 999, into actually getting the full 1,000. But if you're close, if you're at 240 ADA staked, you're probably going to get, over 900 drip in this range here. So the idea is to encourage you to move to that wallet size that actually helps the pools you're staking to, instead of just having a wallet staked down here in the 10, 20 range that's just there to farm tokens. So kind of where we started with the flat rate drop. It also can be configured, like I said, with a minimum wallet size. The default minimum is set to 10 ADA, but that can be configured based on who the token client is and what their goals are. So then we can add a variable. The variable is how much ADA does the wallet hold. This is kind of a linear drop based on the amount of ADA staked to a pool, or it could just be to any pool. It also, like the flat rate, can be configured with a minimum wallet size. Again, the default is set to 10 ADA, but this can be configured. You can also set a maximum amount of tokens dropped. So, if you're a token client and you don't want your tokens to get just swallowed up by one whale or something that stakes 4 million ADA and then just gobbles your tokens, you can also set this to flatten out after a certain number of tokens, so they just get a flat rate after a certain point. So the new drip curve, we just announced this both on the Twitter space and in the Medium article. Go check those out. I'll try to link them below. But how did we get here? Well, the drip token is not actually the first token to implement this curve, believe it or not. We did a new monster drop on the Project Noom team a while back, and this was a special drop. It was only for one epoch only. It was blockchain wide. It was a flat rate drop, but we wanted to prevent people spamming wallets in order to collect it many, many times. And so we used the S-curve so that the wallets couldn't claim too much, but we didn't want to exclude them entirely. So they got something less than the full amount of the new monster drop, but they weren't excluded. The other token that decided to implement this is the Resi token. Again, this is not financial advice for me mentioning these tokens. I'm just mentioning that they happen to use this distribution. So this token was being pretty heavily farmed, and they wanted to do more of a wide distribution instead of, a lot of tiny wallets kind of collecting it all and having farmers grab it all. So they wanted to make sure their token got far and wide, but not, collected by a few individuals controlling many, many wallets. So kind of how it works is there's two variables that go into it. There's an endpoint and a scale number. So the endpoint kind of determines at what rate the transition happens. 267 is where we set that endpoint for the drip token. And that kind of gave us right around 150 is where it transitioned into the full drip amount. So again, if you had like 240, you're probably going to get almost all of it. If you have down in the 20 or 30 range, you're going to be down in this low range. And then it will transition rapidly between, if you've got, 150 or whatever, you're probably going to end up somewhere in the middle at like 500 drip, something like that. I'm not going to go into the details of this other than to say, the endpoint is where the inflection happens, and the scale is how steep the curve is. So the bigger that scale number, the faster you move between, the bottom range of nothing and your ideal amount of drip for full rewards. And so 2 just seemed like a pretty good number for us to rapidly transition. But, that can be, if you want a smoother curve, a slower up and to the right curve, you can lower this number and make that happen. So kind of, that's a bad slide. So what are the variables? So what does a token client have as the inputs into their formula to make a good decision? So first of all, the amount of ADA staked. What pool is it staked to is also a variable, or you can set it up to be any pool staked. The current epoch number is also an input. So if you wanted to do a declining rewards function and reward early adopters of your drop, you could do that. So you could say, well, I'm starting the drop in epoch X, and then you say current epoch minus X, and then use that number to reduce the rewards that go out over time. We can also trigger off how many NFTs of a certain policy or certain name are in the wallet. We can't trigger off of any traits at this time. So if you want to specify different NFTs all within the same policy, make sure to change those names. We did do one where we triggered off of certain number ranges, but that was extremely difficult to do. I think it was the Soul token had like certain number ranges were special, and that was very difficult to trigger off of. Very complex on the database. You can also trigger off of a fungible token in the wallet. So again, not financial advice. We had the iBile coin where they kind of do a non-custodial staking like ADA does, where we take a snapshot every epoch of where their fungible tokens are. And the more of their fungible token that's in the wallet, the more you receive of that fungible token. So it's kind of a poor man's non-custodial staking, pretty much like ADA works. And then the final variable we have, which is not implemented in any token yet, which is DripPro user. So DripPro is coming. We still have a vote coming up to decide, how much drip it's going to require to redeem in order to move you to a DripPro user. But the idea here is, we may have some drops that are dropping more value, and then the various levels of KYC and anti-money laundering laws, legally require us to have different requirements. That may not be a full KYC. It may just be, you have to have an account, or you have to have provided an email. We're still working with the lawyers on what that means. Ideally, we're going to set that at the minimum required by law to do what we're trying to do. We want to stay legal with everything. But really, the variables kind of give the token client a lot of flexibility into how they do the drop and how they reward the people in their ecosystem and using the utility of their various tokens. So a little bit of token client advice. This is not financial advice. This is just general advice. Think deeply about your distribution goals if you are a token client of DripDropz. So what is your ideal distribution of token? Are you going after rewarding a small set of people? Are you going after getting your project known out there? If that's the case, you want to do a blockchain-wide distribution. Think deeply about how could somebody potentially game the system and thwart your goals for your token. And again, reach out to the DripDropz team through our support channel on the website if you want to change your current distribution from what it is today. And with that, that's all I've got. Nerd out.